Through this climbing channel and my main channel, I have had the wonderful privilege of climbing with some extraordinary people, and 4 of those people have been elite professional climbers. Each of them, in their own right, can be considered one of the very best in the world at what they do. I spent a decent period of time learning from them, technical climbing stuff, but also observing their philosophy, their approach to this strange sport, and their mindset. So here are some of the things that surprised me, that I observed, that I learned from climbing with the very best in the world. So who am I talking about? Well, I've climbed with both wide boys, Tom Randall and Pete Whitaker. These guys are 2 of the very best trad and crack climbers on the planet. They were the first to send Century Crack in 2011, a monster line of appalling difficulty suspended upside down for half an hour, probably the hardest crack climb ever. Just after I had been climbing with Pete, he went on to send Creme Royale, a preposterous 9A 100 metre single pitch and surely one of the most difficult trad routes ever. After I spent time climbing with Tom, he went and sent one of his most gruelling off-widths, Autobahn. Again, an enormous pitch, this time under a bridge and once again completely horizontal. Notice here that there's not even a rope. He's just got a pair of cams which he didn't use. Does that make this route a free solo? I don't know. Tell me what you think in the comments below. Next we have Dave Macleod, the first ever to free climb E11, Rhapsody in Dumbarton, taking this historic whipper in the process. But Dave has also climbed V15 and 9A Sport and is an elite winter climber. He's one of the boldest climbers ever, free soloing 8B+, which is mental, but also bagging first ascents on dozens of no-fall, hard, bold trad lines. Many of them here in Scotland. Most recently, I had a coaching session with Mat Wright, the youngest of these 4 athletes. Like Dave Macleod, he's an elite all-rounder, one of a handful of people that have climbed multiple E11s as well as 9A Sport and V15 in bouldering. Matt is known best for bold, hard trad lines and has recently moved to Scotland where he is currently tearing his way through all of the hardest routes here and developing new lines that are pushing the envelope even further. So 4 elite climbers, 4 learning experiences. What did I notice? Except that they were all really good. The first thing that struck me when watching these pros climb was their footwork. I was still very new to climbing when I met Pete in the Peak District, but I was shocked at the precision and attentiveness of his foot placement, even though at this grade, Pete could probably solo this blindfolded. When it's very easy climbing, I tend to just place my feet anywhere that's decent, but Pete seemed to place the same level of care over where on the rock he put his feet, whether it was 4A or 9A. It was the same story when I climbed with Dave Macleod. He was even commenting on tiny patches of lichen that might provide a traitorous placement.
I think he had his right foot where mine is now, but kind of turned round a bit, but he put his left foot there, and I'm just not like mega happy with that smear. It's like, if you're like leaning right into it, then fine, but it's quite polished rock, and there's also, well, there's a better foothold higher up, and there's also a better foothold just about a couple of inches further across. There's one there and there's one there, so that one just made me think, oh, maybe his foot could slip.
This is a level of detail that I just don't normally think about. This footage of Mat Wright climbing this V5 boulder is illuminating. Not actually the footage so much, but the audio. His feet are almost completely silent on the wall, and his placements are just one and done. No jerking around or shuffling, just surgical precision, first time with utter silence. For reference, here's a shot of me trying the same boulder.
Come on. Come on, keep it going.
I've observed strong climbers at the gym, so I understand that accuracy is important when it comes to your feet, but these elite climbers take exactness to a whole new level. So if you're like me and suffer from noisy, sloppy footwork, get some footwork drills worked into your warm-up. The pros' attention to detail didn't just end with their feet either. All of these guys paid close attention to every conceivable detail about climbing, particularly with gear placement.
That one's good, but I'd say we can do better. So I think I put a gold in here when I was leading it. I think it was in there. So I put it in left in the wide section and then slid it into the narrower section there. I think that is probably slightly better. That one we can see is like a bit flaring.
Pete, Dave and Tom were much more conscious of exactly where I placed gear than I was. We're talking millimeters here. To me, all the placements I made looked good, but all three of these pros could tell immediately from the ground if the cam was going to walk, if I needed to extend something, or if the rock was untrustworthy.
Oh no. That cam placement, it's okay, but it's not amazing. Yeah, I mean, I think it's all right, but it's just that there's better ones on either side. So there's a good parallel crack a bit deeper into the crack there. I'm not sure if you can see that, but just one of the lobes of that cam is just kind of in a groove of quite Crosley rock that looks like it might just kind of break open if it held a fall. So that's like a 7 out of 10. The placement's not such a problem, it's just that there's 10 out of 10 placements right beside it.
Pete even commented that he could tell if a cam placement was good based on the sound it made when you tug on it. This likely explains why they're still alive, because if you're going to climb trad like these guys do, you better make sure you can trust your gear placements. This week's episode is sponsored by Frictitious. Something all of these guys have in common is insanely strong fingers, and I believe that every professional climber uses fingerboarding in their training plan in some capacity. So if this winter you want to see some gains in your pulling strength, check out Frictitious hangboards and their doorway mounting system. If, like me, you don't want to drill holes into your house, but you do want the convenience of having a hangboard in the kitchen that can be installed and removed in under a minute, then the Frictitious board is ideal. I got their monolith hangboard, which has a perfect jug at the top for pull-ups or warming up, and has 7 edges ranging from 30mm to 8mm, and it has a 22mm positive central edge. The hangboard is made from poplar wood that does not place any unnecessary strain on your skin, but also acts as a great hold when you use a little bit of chalk with it. The kit takes only a few minutes to assemble, requiring just a screwdriver, and you actually don't need any tools to install it onto your door frame. As I mentioned before, the doorway mount takes under a minute to install, and it's a really nicely designed bit of kit. I'll admit I was a little bit apprehensive about damaging my door frame, so I tested this thoroughly before working with Frictitious and can confirm not a scratch. So if you're in rented accommodation, worry not. It'll fit most door frames, but you can actually check to make sure on the Frictitious website in case you have a awkward size door frame. So if you feel like upping your finger strength this winter without destroying your house, check out Frictitious. My viewers can get a crazy 20% off a Frictitious hangboard with a doorway mount. Just follow the link in the description. Thank you very much to Frictitious for supporting the content. Back to the video. For each of these 4 coaching sessions I had, I was aware that I was climbing with likely one of the boldest climbers in the world at that point, and I was a little bit concerned about what they had in store for me. I was worried they'd be quite blasé when it comes to safety. From a naive perspective, this kind of stuff is simply mental, and I was not prepared to put myself in a scenario where a fall would mean I'd die. But to my surprise, all the pros were actually extremely safety conscious, more vigilant than even I am when I'm outside. No one wanted me to climb into a no-fall zone or climb above crappy gear or even push myself too hard.
What I think is generally a bad idea is close to the ground, people putting one piece of gear and lowering off and down climbing. Like I've seen that happen a lot of times, and then suddenly something pops and then you hit the ground. So always when you're close to the ground, think of having redundancy in the system.
I think this would still be the hardest grade I've done. So if we did lead it today, that would still be an achievement.
Yeah.
And even if it's not an achievement, that's okay.
Well, the main achievement is to come back from the day out climbing in one piece.
Yeah.
That's the #1 achievement. Yeah.
Okay,
Well, that's the secondary.
if we're going with that, then let's get you on the sharp end.
Okay, good stuff. Yeah.
What I realised was these guys are not reckless maniacs. They are calculated, confident professionals. And this makes their bold climbing even more remarkable. They are so competent that they can bring incredibly bold climbing where you cannot fall to within an acceptable level of risk. And that's really impressive. To continue with my previous point, I was also surprised at how in touch they were with a relative beginner's concerns. I thought that they'd be so far past my level that they'd have forgotten what it's like to be this green to climbing. But that wasn't the case at all.
Okay, I'm just going to be real with you. I'm not feeling good at all here.
No, that is completely normal.
Yeah, I just don't really want to do this. Yeah.
If it's any consolation at all, I get exactly the same feeling on multiple occasions.
And you're just wondering why you're here.
Yeah, you feel really stressed. You're like, this isn't even fun. Like, I don't even know if I like climbing.
I just ripped straight out.
Mike is on pitch number 3, and he has just tested a piece of gear and ripped it out. It's always a little bit unnerving when you put a piece in, you think it's good, and then you obviously tug on it and then it just rips straight out, which I think is what he may have just done.
All 4 pro climbers were surprisingly in touch with what it's like to have less than 2 years climbing experience under your belt and the kind of concerns you'd have. It was actually quite comforting to hear that they were sympathetic to my concerns about leading or climbing above protection, or even just being overwhelmed by the difficulty of a boulder. When I was being coached by Matt, Pete, Tom and Dave, it was interesting to me how much emphasis they placed not on physical strength or technique, but mindset. They all seemed to really understand that to get the best out of me, I'd need to be calm. Matt even had me perform a little meditation session before my send attempt on this boulder. And Tom Randall understood that I really needed a break at some point and just needed a top rope for a little while before I had a complete meltdown.
You're getting to the point now where I'm watching you and I can see your stress levels are increasingly building now. And they're going to get to the point where I think a lot of people ignore this point and they just battle on and then they get themselves into a really big hole.
Yeah.
And you can't rescue it for the day.
I feel like I'm already in the hole.
What you need to do now is just pull back from that.
Okay.
And get into a zone of comfort again.
Yeah.
So after that, when I've climbed it, I'm going to get you to second me. And so you're going to get to travel across the whole of the terrain of the route and start to feel what it actually feels like from a physical sense, but just a little bit more of a mental zone that feels better.
Yeah.
And then we're going to come back to the leading process again after that.
You can see here on my red point attempt that he's even encouraging me to breathe and chill out between hard sections of left unconquerable, and even after the crux where I might be tempted to make an unprotected dash for the top. But he encouraged me to not get carried away, breathe, remain calm and keep your head screwed on.
Right, once you've got that piece in there, now try and find a position of relaxation. So just move those feet around a little bit. Find some really good jams. Yeah, that's it. And then have a little concentration on your breathing as well. Just think about that breathing being nice and slow and considered. Keep moving those feet around, getting a really good rest. Can you hear your own breathing?
Yeah.
Yeah, good. Okay, excellent.
This understanding of how psychology can affect your climbing shows that these guys know how to manage it for best performance. They seem to understand when a buildup of psychological stress is too much and begins eating away at your performance. And they can notice when things are becoming overwhelming for me. What struck me most was just how much importance they placed on managing your mind. I think this shows that if you want to become a truly great climber, it's not enough to just be insanely strong. You got to have it sorted up here too. At some point I asked all 4 of the pros, how can I improve? How can I get better as a climber, be it trad sport or bouldering? And although their answers were different, they shared a common theme. All of them suggested that I work on technique and gaining experience rather than just trying to get stronger.
I'm psyched, though.
Brilliant.
Yeah.
And maybe it's a bit too early to say. It's one of these things that you probably have to, you know, as you're driving home tonight, you'll be sort of digesting that, going like, oh, what does that mean for what you would do next?
The same grade again.
Yeah.
Like for
many times, yeah.
For another 100 routes.
That's the way forward.
Yeah. Say the thing that I recommend to you is that you want to build out your experience base as wide and as broad as possible, but with really good quality. So anything which is missing still within your climbing, and you're like, oh, I haven't had that many experiences that look like this, think about them and then go, how do I make a really good quality experience that? So that's either finding someone who's really good at that thing already and they come and mentor you along to it, or you find a really inspiring situation that means that you get a really positive experience out of it, or you do one that's really challenging.
It was interesting to me that none of these climbers who are famously strong suggested weighted pull-ups or circuits or 4x4s or campus boarding. It seems that for someone under 2 years into their climbing journey, the low-hanging fruit is experience, technique and mindset. Lots of climbing, basically. All 4 of these experiences were eye-opening, humbling and inspiring, and I learned lots of technical stuff, but also more broad philosophical ideas about climbing from my time with the pros. But what struck me the most out of anything, however, was the level of psych. When your day job is climbing E11, working with a Gumby on a VS or V5 has got to be a dull day in the office, right? But these guys seemed genuinely psyched to be there and authentically thrilled when I sent the project.
Come on, Mike. Yes. Easy. Nice one, man. Yes.
Holy smokes. Oh, people get all excited about E10s, but I think that was like way better on E1. That's your first E1.
Yeah. Honestly, I'm like...
You're like into the E grades already. You know, that's one of the more inspiring things I've seen in a long time.
Because you knew how hard I was pushing it.
Yeah. I like to see you so out of your comfort zone, but then pull it off. That was so freaking good. Like, I was like at the bottom going, oh my God. Oh my God, that's such a good effort.
It was really clear to me when meeting these guys in the flesh that behind their success and their motivation for training and their strength and their talent is a genuine, deep-rooted passion for climbing. This is not just a job for them. And they are psyched to see someone push themselves like they do, even if it is 10 grades lower in difficulty. What I really learned was keep up the psych. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Perhaps it was enlightening. Let me know what you think in the comments below. We do actually have a video for next week, so please subscribe and I'll see you then. Thank you very much for watching as always. Peace.